Hello, everybody. This is Eric Virathaler of Virathaler Studios, back again for the next episode of Sit Down by the Fire. I'm here with my co-host Ty from Junebug Films, and we're here with our next special guest. Please introduce yourself.
Stan Smith.
But yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that, and we also certainly want to thank you for taking time out of your day to be here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
So how about that you tell my audience what is it exactly that you do?
Well, I work in film, have for since 1979. I just wrapped on 1923
Nice.
just
Nice.
the other day, so now I'm free for another film sometime here soon. I stunt perform, stunt coordinate. I do safety, armor. I've done precision car driving, casting, background, and actors, producing, location casting, ADs, photographers, acting, just about everything on set.
Nice, awesome.
All right, cool.
But yeah, and then in that case you, but yeah, so in that case you certainly do have more than one role, which I can imagine that keeps you occupied.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I just retired from my day job back in May, and I've been keeping pretty busy with productions in Montana since then. I've done almost a dozen so far. So
Nice. And so I guess take us back to the beginning. What exactly started your whole journey like about getting into the film?
well, I was 20 years old in 1979, and I was in LA working on a recording for my album that has yet to ever come out since. But
Someday.
I was running out of money. I was going broke, is what they say.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And so I needed money, and Olivia Newton-John was recording in the studio next door and said, "Well, we've got a need for extras for a film. Would you be interested in doing that for a couple of days?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I can use the money."
Mm-hmm.
So I auditioned and got to be a roller skating disco dancer in the movie Xanadu.
Nice.
There you go.
A lot of fun.
So,
And that kind of just started,
did you-
started off there. I came back to Montana and worked on Heaven's Gate, doing the same thing, roller skating, and then eventually I got into other films and
uh,
started around as background mostly until '89, and then I started doing stunt coordinating and stunt performing.
Nice.
Heaven's Gate, one of the definitely most interesting productions,
Yeah, I had one day on there. It was all roller skating. It was a lot of fun, and made friends with Jeff and a bunch of the other guys, and so
the movie that
been a journey since then.
that must have been a lot of fun, but it's the you hear the stories of it, the stories about that movie,
Yeah, not all of them are true though. I've heard a
Really?
lot of stories, and not all are true.
Yeah, so Michael Tremino wasn't the type that, I'm going to wait until the clouds are in the right proportion to get
Yeah.
the shot, or
Well, I think most directors are that way.
Eric, you're a director. Are you like that?
Well, I like to get my shots precise, but I don't think that precise about like where the clouds are.
Well,
Yeah,
I'm going to sit
exactly.
there. As I've gotten criticized for that in my films. I'm like, okay, if you're going to criticize me because the clouds are not in the right formation, um, who gives a
More
shit?
about
They're
lighting than
clouds.
anything else.
Um,
Lighting is the most important thing, and a lot of times
Oh,
that's
yeah.
what a director concerns himself with is
oh
how
yeah.
how the clouds are covering
Oh
the
yeah.
sun or that kind of thing. So yeah,
Oh yeah.
But
Certainly.
yeah, and then the movie that it killed United Artist, so because it flopped so bad. But no, hey, that
yeah.
must have been a fun experience, though. Just roller skating. Were you good at that, or did you just try your best?
Actually, I spent 7 years of my childhood in South Florida, so I was always roller skating and the rinks down there, and
Right.
they were kind of surprised when I told them, yeah, I'll audition for you for the roller skating job because it paid more than the other background.
Right.
Right.
And they said, well, you're from Montana. How's that work? And I'm like, well, let me show you.
Uh-huh,
So
yeah.
Eric.
I auditioned and got the part. So
So
yeah,
Eric, are there good roller skating derbies in Montana or something, or what?
Yeah.
not really. I think Great Falls has one, and yeah, there's not very many skating rinks around here. Helen, I think, has one. So,
Yeah, I
yeah,
think Billings used to have one, but unless if I'm getting it mixed up with something else.
what's that?
I could have swore that Billings once had one, unless if I'm getting it mixed up with something else, but I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, I don't recall one there. I think Helena had one. I don't know if it's still there or not. I
Yeah,
don't roller skate
entirely.
anymore because I'm
Oh.
old.
Yeah. Well, so did you really get to work much with Olivia or not?
No, I didn't get to work with her too much. We shared a couple of scenes where I was in background on roller skates, but
Right.
I did get to work with Gene Kelly quite a bit, and
Wow.
that was impressive because that was his last film, and he was in his
Right.
70s, and he outskated us, all of us 19, 20-year-olds.
He
Um,
was.
It was pretty interesting.
Yeah. Well, I think he came out of retirement for that movie. So.
Yeah, and then he didn't make any more after that. He died like 9, 10 years later.
Oh,
Right.
that's a shame.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
was in his. I mean, yeah, yeah, you know, what a dancer.
Yeah, he was pretty good. He was very athletic even at that age.
Oh, I can imagine.
I know. I know Don Bluth also did the animation for that movie. So
Yeah, that was
scene.
one of his earliest things, I guess.
Yeah.
And I never knew that until a few years ago. Somebody told me that, and I'm like, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah,
He
I
did.
didn't know either.
He did the animation for it, one of the jobs he got after he left Disney. So, and you know, if you kind of look at the animation, it kind of fits his style anyway. So you know.
Yeah.
But what's your what how I know you mentioned you worked on 1923. Do you meet Harrison?
Oh yeah, I've worked with him before.
Yeah.
I've worked with Harrison on Cowboys and Aliens down in Santa Fe a few years back.
Did he remember you?
Actually, he did, but we didn't have a whole lot of time to visit, so we were busy working.
There you go.
Which is fair, yeah. Right, and I mean, you know, like when work needs to be done, you know, that definitely does need to be the top priority.
I know.
No
Cowboys,
autographs, no pictures, none of that schmoozing stuff. You gotta.
I know. On Cowboys and Aliens, they had John Wayne's grandson.
What's that?
I know on Cowboys and Aliens, they had John Wayne's grandson in the movie.
Oh, yeah. I had no idea.
Brendan Wayne.
Yeah, he was in there, and we had one of the 007s. I've worked with 3 of the 007s. Pierce Brosnan and him and Timothy Dalton.
Yeah, like correct me if I'm wrong, like wasn't there a movie like with Pierce Brosnan like that was done over at like the Yellowstone Dome Ranch like a few years back?
Yeah, we shot it last year. It's called Unholy Trinity, and we had a blast. I worked with him on Dante's Peak back in the late 90s in Wallace, Idaho too, and he's very classy.
Oh yeah, I can imagine so. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if that's one of the reasons why that he even got cast as James Bond.
Yeah, I think he's actually the best James Bond myself.
Yeah, you know, finally somebody who's saying the same thing that I've been saying for the longest time. And I mean, of course, it's certainly not anything against Sean Connery and everyone else, but it's just, you know, it's just whenever I hear the name James Bond, like in my own opinion, it is always Pierce's James Bond that always comes to my mind.
Yeah. And you know, those were the movies he did were extraordinary in their the action shots, which is what I love. It wasn't so much the one-on-one acting, which that's okay, but being a stunt performer, I like the action stuff.
Oh yeah,
Right, yeah.
man.
Of course.
Man, why can't people leave me alone? I'm doing an interview. They have to give me a phone call. Come on, make me look so professional.
Yeah, you just must be a pretty popular person.
Yeah, and so anyway, so you worked for 2 of the James Bonds. I heard Timothy Dalton and Daniel Craig.
Pardon?
Yeah. So, man, who's your personal favorite Bond? I mean,
Funny. It's because while you were gone, he actually said who his favorite Bond is.
Well, man, I just paid it. Man, I guess I should have paid more attention. But
now you have to guess.
Sean Connery.
Well, I like Sean Connery, yes, but Pierce Brosnan, I think, was the best.
Yeah, Pierce was that perfect mixture of Sean and Roger Moore.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I guess can you think of anybody? Do you have anybody who you want to be the next James Bond?
Yeah, I can't think of anyone offhand. They've thrown so many names out there. It's crazy.
I have, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know. I just think that the movie came out in 2021.
Yeah.
Like that was 3 years ago. Where's the new movie?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I'm honestly pretty surprised, like the fact that we've got no announcement. I mean, I'm sure that they're working on it. They probably just haven't announced it to the public yet.
I've heard rumblings that the Eon Productions is talking about selling James Bond.
Well, that would be surprising considering that that's a big name franchise. So
yeah, that's their cash cow. I don't know if they do that.
I've heard rumblings. I don't know, but rumblings are rumblings until something happens. So
exactly, yeah.
It's the film business.
What's your so you've done some stunts and everything. Do you have any like crazy stunt stories that you've done?
Yeah, the land rush scene from Far and Away. It's a Ron Howard picture that we shot up here near Billings. Yeah, that was a fun picture, and we had a close call with Tom Cruise, where he got dismounted.
Oh no!
And scared the heck out of everybody. But at that time, he was the highest paid actor in the world at only $12 million. This is the early '90s, so
yeah.
But that scared him pretty bad that he had fell off this horse. But he got right back on, and we took off again, and nobody knew the difference. So
Tom Cruise, I've heard this that guy. I mean, that guy needs to be on. That guy's like on the level of Jackie Chan with the stunts he's done. Like,
yeah, he's quite athletic actually, and very intensely professional.
That's what I've heard.
I can imagine, especially with like this leaked video, like of when he was on set of the most recent Mission Impossible, like somebody wasn't following like COVID protocols, and then he got really angry at that person. I mean, it's very.
It could have meant, he was upset because it could have meant closing the production down, and there's a lot of jobs involved. He's very pro worker. He likes the film crews, and he wants to make sure they're employed, and that was threatening their jobs by not.
Well, that's what I sit there and say. Whatever your personal opinions are about the whole COVID thing, sometimes it's best to shut up.
Exactly.
And it sounds like those people are just being idiots, really, so.
Occasionally you get somebody that wants to buck the system, and it's not always to their advantage to do so, especially in the film business.
Oh yeah, well,
competitive business. So
I think a lot of people take it for granted, who, you just stand around and maybe have a cup of coffee and tell what the director does. No.
No.
Oh, no. It does not work that way
Yeah.
at all. It's just
If you
work,
get,
work.
There's no glamour in Hollywood.
yeah. Well, no, I mean, so anyway, so let's see. Uh, I'm assuming you've worked with Taylor Sheridan then before, besides 1923.
Yeah, I've worked on all of the. I've worked on Yellowstone, 1883, and 1923,
Yeah,
and I've worked with Kevin Costner several times actually.
yeah.
The Postman.
I've heard he's a really cool guy. So
He's very professional, but very laid back and
yeah,
almost like a mentor. He
Right.
actually knows how to direct people and make them feel like they're contributing to
yeah,
the scene themselves, but it's actually him pushing it. So he's very
right.
good.
Yeah. Well, you can tell even in interviews how professional he is and everything.
Oh yeah.
He's like, I don't know, like in some ways he's like one of the last like true Western actors, really, and
Yeah,
like
and he
that
loves
job.
the westerns. He's
Oh
very
yeah.
historically inclined. Uh, he does his research. He knows
Mhm.
the history of the era that we're working on, and that's always a good thing. I
Mhm.
love that.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, and as somebody who loves westerns,
Yeah,
my my one of my favorite movies of all time is The Searchers, and you know,
yeah, yeah. I
and
do a lot of reenactments and stuff, so I do a lot of research for history, and
Mhm.
it's mostly Western
Did you?
reenactments that I do. And
Yeah.
so that's a big thing to me is that there's accuracy
Hmm.
in the westerns that they have
Did,
today, as
did you
opposed
work?
to the
Did you
40s,
work on
50s.
Bass Reeves?
What's that?
Did you work on Bass Reeves?
No, they didn't have me in that. That was down in
No,
Texas.
darn.
Um,
Well,
Good. It was a good series, though. They did a good job.
it was. Um, it was kind of interesting. Like, had to have a little bit of verisimilitude with that one because here's David Yellow, who's like pretty short, like Bass Reeves. You
Yeah.
do your research. I've heard reports say he was like 6'5", something like that.
Boy.
Yeah.
So
That's
you
pretty
get, yeah, but and I would,
All in camera angles.
yeah, but hey, not a lot of actors are 6'5", so
Yeah, you can make anybody look tall or short. It's all in the angles
or
It is, yeah.
or the boots.
or the boots or the apple box.
As well.
Right.
And yeah, and it's funny that you mentioned Tom Cruise because one of the things I've heard about him is that he's pretty short in real life, but yet watching his movies, you definitely would not ever know that.
Yeah, and
Well,
he has a big personality that helps
yeah,
to project that. Even
right.
though we use camera angles, he still has a
Um,
larger than life personality, so that helps.
um, and and Far and Away, that was one of the few movies he did with Nicole Kidman. So
Mhm.
Yeah, they were still married at the time. Yeah.
yes, um,
We rode through gopher infested fields at 35 miles an hour and had 9 cameras rolling at the same time during the land rush scene, and
yeah. Well,
it was just amazing fun.
well, I'm from Kansas, so I kind of know a little bit about the Homestead Act and everything.
Yeah.
And actually, come to find out, my family, for our we got our land because we got it during the Homestead Act, the family farm in 1875 and everything. And we come to find out, I guess we were Sooners,
Yeah.
meaning we cheated. But hey, isn't that America, the land of opportunity, right?
Certainly, yeah.
But no, I mean, man, I don't think we're gonna get charged for that one now because we've had it for 100 some years. So still
Yeah.
in the family.
Yeah.
And actually, even that town in Nebraska would actually name had my last name for a little bit. So
Huh.
it's pretty cool.
Well, that's a coincidence, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I know a lot, but I know a lot of westerns get filmed in Montana, right, guys?
Makes
Yeah.
sense.
we have filmed probably a dozen productions at the Film Ranch since it opened. So, and most of those were westerns. We did a couple of commercials and some photo shoots, but yeah, and Trinity was one of them, of course. But we did Outlaw Posse and Murder at Yellowstone, and just we've had a lot of great success with that site. They did a great job of putting these buildings up, and it's out in the middle of an area where there's no modernized things in the backdrop. So
Yeah.
Yes, which definitely helps for a western.
yes,
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah,
And,
you don't want to be filming a western and hey, there's a telephone pole.
yeah. We don't have any of those out there, you know. And we filmed a film that was based in 1350, and we had the right kind of weather for it and everything. I did the stunt coordinating for the hanging scene.
What's that?
And it was amazing with the backdrop of the mountains in the background.
I know. You talked about Robert the Bruce, because I know that was filmed in Montana. It was the sequel. It's the sequel to Braveheart.
I actually believe it's just as good as Braveheart, just not as on grand a scale.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's as good as Braveheart. Just it just needed that more grand scale, and possibly Mel Gibson to direct it, but good luck affording that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he's definitely not going to be cheap.
Yeah.
But I liked it. The fact that they got two people from Braveheart in it.
Yes, Reese he's a character in himself. He is who he is on screen. So you would think he came from that era. He's just
he's one of my favorite underrated actors, because
he's very underrated. I would think he would have been, if he'd been 20 years younger when he started out, I think he'd probably be one of the biggest. He's just that good.
Oh yeah.
His YouTube channel, I love it, where he sits there. He'll do impressions of Orson Welles, and it's spot on.
Yeah, and he has a wild sense of humor. So.
I can imagine.
That's probably the Scotsman a little bit, right?
Yeah. Very.
So let's see.
So yeah, I also know that recently there was a movie filmed in Montana called Somewhere in Montana. Were you involved with that one?
No, but we did premiere it at my theater in Dillon, and I have a lot of friends that I've worked with that worked on it, and it was a wonderful film. So when it does finally get to be released as a regular circuit film, you got to go see it. Excellent.
Oh yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, and I mean, I from what I've heard from people who have seen it, I mean, everybody has said that they feel like it's incredible. Man, yeah, and I mean, we actually did have some of the actors on who were a part of that movie, and but yeah, from what I heard, it was supposed to come out in October, but for more reasons they had to postpone it until January. And I mean, hey, I mean, sucks they had to postpone it, but hey, I mean, there's always that saying that it's better late than never.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I know you interviewed Melly Wendt.
Yep.
I've worked with her on several occasions. She's great. I've even casted her in a couple of things myself. We all had so much fun on the productions that we've worked on. So she's a great team player.
Oh yeah.
That's I see some definitely big star potential on that lady.
Yeah.
So
certainly.
She has that. I told Eric, she has that old Hollywood look to her.
Yep, she did.
And and hey, don't disrespect her husband, but it's like, man, she's one of those, you take a double look at her, like, wow,
Yeah. That and she's tall.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hey, I'm 6 foot. I can make it work. You can just sit there, kind of, so.
But she's a sweetheart and a great mom. I mean, what a dedicated mother.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
definitely.
And her husband too. What a guy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's a great guy.
Yeah,
They have a really good family.
Yeah, and I mean, knowing what he does for her, like that, knowing that he will work these 12-hour shifts, just to help
and
support her dream. I mean, that says a lot about him.
And even be there for the kids on their baseball games and all the other stuff.
Exactly.
Like, wow. I mean, I hope that during the weekends, at least he's getting some good rest, on his day offs.
They're young though. While you're young is when you do all that stuff.
Well, I don't know. I'm about their age, and sometimes I feel old. Sometimes,
well, I am old, so I can attest to the fact that you do it while you're young and make the most of it. Make the hay while the sun shines.
That's why. See, maybe that's why I want to be more of a producer. I'll just let this guy do all the work, right?
Yeah. When I've produced, I'll tell you what, that's a tough job.
Oh, yeah, no, I know.
No glamour whatsoever. So
I know. We all tease, but it's hard work. But it's not all getting a cup of coffee.
No.
So, being you said you're a fan of history with the West and everything. What's one story that you would like to see in the West that maybe hasn't really been brought to the big screen?
We're working on a script right now for, if you're familiar with Sheriff Henry Plummer, we're working on a script about the last years of his life before he was hung as a road agent. And that I would like to see. We've been working on it for, well before COVID kicked in. And
there's so many stories out there that really we haven't seen with the Old West, like
a lot more than Wyatt Earp and Billy the Kid. There's a lot of characters out there.
And Jesse James and all the other guys, let's get more about let's get more about the Dalton boys or something, or even John Wesley Harding would be interesting to see a movie about. A good one, or see, I'm from Kansas, so I've always said I want to see a good movie about bleeding Kansas,
Actually, I remember there was a script out there for a while that they were talking about doing something like that.
And I know that
it just went nowhere.
I know that they did one with Ethan Hawke playing John Brown, which
and he did a great job, but they did not promote that film at all.
Well, and no disrespect to that movie, but I just had a hard time finding Ethan Hawke as John Brown,
Yeah. Yeah, he was kind of played against character there, but he did all right. It was, a well-told story. It was just...
But no, John Brown was this guy who 6'4" and had this, there's that classic image that's actually, it's a mural in our Capitol.
Where he's very fiery personality. So,
where he's holding the Bible and then holding a gun in the other hand, and and just this long beard. It's like I said, probably the person to get. He might be a little older now, but you would need to start like Kurt Russell or something,
Yeah. Actually, it wouldn't be a bad idea because he'd be the right age now, and he's got the hair for it.
Yeah, well, he can grow the beard and everything, and I love what he says when Gold, I guess he said, I love Kurt Russell. They said, "What does Goldie think of the beard?" She said, she doesn't like it, but she could deal with it.
Yeah,
I'm like, wow.
Money's being paid, she can handle it.
Yep. But no, Kurt Russell would be my choice, or even there's so many other stories too.
Even Jeff Bridges. Jeff Bridges would actually make a good John Brown.
Oh yeah,
definitely.
Because he's got the fiery personality as well, and
right.
He's got the build So
I mean, hey, he's a little older, but even Sam Elliott actually would be good.
Oh yeah.
actually, yes.
As if he could, as long as he could get the beard, so we might have to get rid of his mustache. But
Yeah, you'd have to tone it down a little bit.
um,
I just got shaved for 1923, so I have no beard left, no mustache.
right.
It's cold out there. I didn't realize how much your facial hair insulates.
Oh yeah.
Definitely. But hey, the nice thing about hair is that
It
knowing
grows
that,
back.
yeah, exactly, yeah.
Sometimes. But I mean, I don't know. Like, I was, I know there's a YouTuber out there, Ray Razorfist, who wrote like stuff about some of the West out there in Arizona, but besides Tombstone and everything, which is fascinating stories there, and all over the West, there's so many great stories that I would love to see adapted. So,
Yeah.
um, like, I mean, just, I mean, one of them that one story I said I always wanted to see was a movie, because it would technically be a Western, but it would kind of transform into like modern war, because I want to see a movie about General Pershing.
Yeah.
Because
He would have made a good cowboy.
well, he technically kind of was, because keep in mind, he
Yeah.
was a soldier in the he started out fighting Geronimo, and then went from that to being the general for World War I, and then became the only active duty 6-star general.
Yeah.
So, Eric, you got any more questions? I don't want to outshine you.
I do appreciate that. But yeah, so I believe that I heard that they switched filming Yellowstone from here to Texas. I heard it was because of like tax reasons.
Well, the reason why we formed the Montana Media Coalition, is to recruit a lobbyist for this next session that's coming up, because we want to get that tax incentive passed and increased. California just got smart and actually increased theirs, and that was an important thing, because Hollywood is no longer the forefront of filmmaking. It's Atlanta, and it's because Atlanta and Georgia have such a great incentive package
Yep.
that they film a lot down there. And that's what we want to do, is create some way of bringing more productions into Montana. And so we're working on that as we speak.
Well, even as someone from Kansas, I'll definitely support you guys, because even Kansas is trying to pass one for 30% tax incentive. So
yeah.
Well, yeah.
If you look at the economic impact, say 1923, the first season that we shot last year in Butte, it brought over $70 million of brand new money into the Butte economy,
exactly.
which recycles through our economy 3 to 4 times.
Well, and
that's a great impact on a
yeah.
Well, and that's what it's one of the reasons why, like, any type of entrepreneurship in any business is good for any type of economy, because it can bring money to your state and anything, and
great jobs. That's a big
and that's why, yes, exactly. Like, hey, like I said, I was, if it, maybe, who knows, maybe if they get that tax incentive, maybe Kevin Costner will actually come back then to Yellowstone. We'll see.
Well, he likes Montana. He's the one that pushed for Yellowstone to be moved up from Park City up to here. So,
which is awesome.
Well,
it's a big thing for somebody like a Costner to know that Montana is the place where it should be shot.
Yeah,
I know that he even has a ranch up in your guys' state too.
Yeah.
And along with Ted Turner, the guy who made Atlanta, the capital of film. You
Yeah,
know,
Ted
so
Turner is actually a neighbor of ours. He's just down the road.
how's he doing? I heard he
He's getting up there. He's in his
well,
mid 80s.
I know he's in his 80s, but last I heard he has, is it aphasia or something?
Something. Yeah, I can't remember what it was called, but
But yeah, I know. How's he doing though? You know, is he hanging in there, good and
the
everything?
last time I seen him personally was last winter, and he looked okay at that time. But
Yeah.
you never know at that age.
Yeah, definitely. And one of the good things about the Montana Media Coalition, when I last talked to somebody about it, and I mean, from what I've been told, like that every single event that they've been having, like actually has been helping to bring more and more people like to join the coalition. Because
Yeah.
from what I was told, I think it was the government or somebody said that they had to get like 300 members by January, I believe, if that's
Yeah, there's some number involved there, but it's more important about the money we raise to pay a lobbyist who can work on our behalf.
Well,
Because in the past, we've all went to the legislature and spoke on behalf of ourselves as a film industry. And if we had a lobbyist, I think that it would be more effective and better spent time. Because it takes a lot of time when people are working. Because most of us in the film industry in Montana work other jobs as well as working in front of the screen. So if we had somebody doing that for us, it would free us up to do what we're doing, and that's a big plus. That's what this coalition is being formed for. And it's now got its 501c3, so that's a good thing. We're moving forward, and we do have a great number of members now. And like you say, our events that we've done, like at the Film Ranch, I couldn't go because I was working on a film at the time, but they had a great turnout, and it did really well. The auction did well. They just had a thing last Friday in Missoula, and they had a good turnout for that and a good auction. So they're coming along. I'm very proud of everybody working on it.
Oh yeah.
Well, I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's there with Hollywood not being the capital anymore, and Atlanta can't. I don't know. Like, you need a state. You need a state that looks beautiful on screen, and Montana really does.
Yeah, definitely.
And like, so who knows?
Our work ethic, as far as crews go, is there's no one even close to us. We know how to work here, and that's a big selling point for any production. Is they want people who can make decisions on their own as well as work as a team.
Yeah,
that always makes things smoothly. Like 1923 or Yellowstone, we had a lot of Montana crew, and it goes very well, very smoothly. And we like that.
Right. I mean, because you look at the old guy, the guys who started Hollywood. California was nothing.
Yeah.
And there's a guy, Valuetainment, his podcast he talked about how Hollywood has kind of forgotten where they came from. They started out in a small town in New Jersey called West Orange, New Jersey, made by Thomas Edison.
Yep.
And then to get rid, Carl Laemmle was the first one to do it. He went to California to start Universal, then got Paramount to move down, and they're still one of the surviving studios of the original one. But that's the big problem. They've forgotten where they came from, and like now people are always looking for that new movie capital for the world. And Montana's beautiful. The only thing that you guys don't have that California has is good weather all year round. But
yeah, it's very bipolar. Having been a rancher most of my life, I can tell you how bipolar the weather is around here. But yeah.
Well, that's kind of Kansas too. I mean, I mean, it's bright and sunny right now, but in the next hour, it's probably going to be raining. and like
Yeah,
they're
it's looking
and
like it's going to snow here. So
and the
yeah.
weather. Well, but then it's like the weatherman. It's like you failed, dude. You didn't even predict this, and like you check the radar. It's like there's not even something in the sky. It's like that's the only. I could see that being the only downside. But hey, maybe if you guys get it, Eric, maybe Sonic 4 can actually be filmed in Montana, right?
There you go.
Yeah, and I definitely will not forget when I went and saw the original Sonic movie in theaters. There were scenes that took place in Montana, and and I definitely will not forget that there was somebody in the theater who was not that far from me who said, "Oh, well, that's ironic. It's because we're watching it in Montana." But I mean, even though it looked close to Montana, really deep down, I knew that it wasn't actually filmed there.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, the only time they actually fooled me is being in Kansas, because for years I actually thought Superman was filmed in Kansas, but we've never had a Superman movie filmed in Kansas. They actually filmed that up in Canada, so
Yeah, and we've had some major losses of productions to Calgary because of the lack of the tax incentive.
right.
So that's another reason why we're fighting so hard to
Well,
get those storylines filmed here instead of up there.
well, you know, as long as as long as Montana still keeps having that fighting spirit, it's going to happen probably. So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I mean that's pretty spot on. It's because that one of the really big things like that will attract filmmakers and film studios like is to have those tax incentives. And and that's exactly why Atlanta, really exploded so much. And I mean, a lot of people who I know, well, like from LA, actually were saying that yeah, a lot of their work moved out of LA, like
Yeah,
over to Atlanta. So
yeah, yeah. North Carolina, Atlanta, New York, their productions are growing, and LA's has been shrinking. So this new law that they got passed, or new what do we call it, act, I think will help to at least bring them back, because the LA area is perfect for filming. I mean, you got nice weather and you got all of the amenities, airports, hotels, you name it. So
mhm,
it's ideal for that. That's why Hollywood started there in the first place, is because
makes
it was all
sense.
Warsbros and it was nice weather. And so, but Atlanta is actually outproducing them right now, and it's
True.
because of that incentive program.
Yeah, and what also helps with Atlanta is like that knowing that it has so many diverse filming locations as well.
Yes, it does. I've shot a western on the border of Florida and Georgia. You
Yep.
would think westerns do not get shot over there. Yes, they do.
well, I
And
just
that right there, yeah, and that right there proves it.
Yep, it
yeah,
does.
I never well, you just never would think that Florida and
Well,
Georgia would
actually,
be.
Florida has a very extensive western history because
Yes,
a
but
lot of the cattle ranches. In fact, I lived on a large cattle ranch outside of Arcadia, Florida, back when I was 10 years old. And that's the ranch where the phrase Florida cracker originated, because they used 20-foot bull whips on horseback and went through the swamps and the palmetto brush to
yeah,
get the Brahmas and their cattle out of the bush. And
yeah.
that's where the word Florida cracker came from. So there's an extensive history of Western uh,
Oh, dude.
lifestyle there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, and even Florida's outdoing, LA with the taxes, everything, because a lot of companies are moving down to Florida or even Texas now. So it's
Yeah, I just finished working on a movie in Jacksonville called Pecan Park. It's a modern day drama, but it was a small production, but we had high production value because they have great studios down there to work in. And it's out on release now. Turned out really good. Um, so yeah, they've got a lot of good stuff to work with in Florida. Yeah.
So, Eric?
Yeah, I guess out of all the movies that you've worked on, which one was but yeah, which one was I guess which one was the one that where you had the most fun on set?
The most fun?
Yeah, yeah.
All of them actually, but Return to Lonesome Dove, which is a miniseries sequel to Lonesome Dove. I worked on that. We shot that outside of Venice. I had a blast on that because I worked on it for 6 weeks and we did a lot of riding.
Mm-hmm.
Had a great time. John Voight's a good guy. All of them were great guys. That was a lot of fun. Far and Away was a lot of fun. Always, I loved working on Always because Spielberg is, he's a genius. But Richard Dreyfuss and John Goodman they were a blast to work with.
Right.
So
Mhm.
yeah, there's so many I couldn't name them all, and yeah, I've
That's fair.
had a good time working on everything. Just working is fun for me.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Certainly. Yeah, and yeah, I actually just remember this back when I was in elementary school when I used to go to this daycare center. The one who used to run that daycare center, I believe that she was an extra in Far and Away, and yeah, and then she was telling me all about it, and yeah, and she was telling me like about how she actually got to meet Tom Cruise and all that. So yeah, one of the things she said about him, I mean, going back to what we said earlier, is that yeah, he's pretty short.
Yeah, I mean, he's a. There's some people that don't like him because they don't know that when he's on set, he's in character. He doesn't break character, and that kind of rubs people the wrong way because they don't understand the acting business. When
Mm-hmm.
you're on set and you're in character, you stay that way, and some can break and not have a problem. Like Pierce Brosnan, he can break away from it, but others they have to stay in that zone, and so.
Which is
No, I found him to be such a professional and so fun to work with. I enjoyed working with Tom.
Yeah. I know. I mean, I've heard people speaking of how short he is, people, on IMDb it says 5'7". I've heard people say he's a lot shorter. So who knows the truth, right?
Yeah, I think he's like 5'6" or 5'7".
So
Nicole was my height, so it was interesting. But she was a natural rider. She was riding in that Land Rush scene on a side saddle with 3 layers of dress on and a hat, and outrode everybody else. That's how good she is.
Nicole, she is she's one of my favorite actresses just because she's, she always just seems very professional on set. She has this certain elegance about him,
Yeah.
So
she's a sweetheart. She really is. Very pleasant.
Like I've even enjoyed watching her play in her movies that don't get a lot of attention, like everything. Like she played Lucille Ball in a recent movie.
Oh yeah.
And
she actually did good.
And she actually did good. Harvey of Bardem, it's like
that's hard to play a character that iconic and make it work. It really is.
And she even played Grace Kelly. So
yeah.
Yeah, that, and on top of that, when you're playing a iconic character, knowing that there's going to be so much pressure on you, well, I like to get it right, and also at the end of the day, knowing that you just can't please everybody. So,
there was even people that criticized that casting choice. I'm like, it's Nicole Kidman. I think Nicole can handle it. She's been acting for a long time. Like,
yeah.
It's like most of the directors that I've worked with, they all get, they'll get criticized for how they casted or how they shot a certain way. And if you have a scene, like Far and Away with Ron Howard, they criticized because he filmed it in 70 millimeter. But what they didn't realize is that when you transfer it to 35, it makes that picture pop. I mean,
yes, exactly.
It was bigger than life. And Spielberg, same way. He does a lot of that kind of stuff, and it's successful because he does not worry about what other people think, and that's always
Mm-hmm.
easy to work with. I like working with directors that don't worry about what the populace thinks about. They want the story to be told the way it should be, and that's what it's all about.
Oh yeah.
Here I'm saying this, Eric, and look after what we're wearing, but you know, sometimes it's best not to listen to the suits.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which is ironic
Yeah.
that you say that.
Yeah.
But no, we're good suits.
Yeah, yeah.
Robert Redford, I've worked with him on a couple of films, and he said that exact same thing. Don't listen to the suits. The suits mean nothing. They're not on set, and it
Right.
works.
Yeah,
There you go.
exactly. And I mean, yeah, and I mean, ultimately, only you know what's best for the movie, and ultimately, not everyone else is going to know what's best. And I mean, especially when it's not even their own movie. So,
Right.
Well, and coming from somebody who is, and I, a film buff and everything, 70 millimeter looks better on the big screen anyway. And even, I mean, I'm one of those that I sit there and say that, somebody needs to adapt it where you can put the 4K cameras, put a CinemaScope lens on them, just to
Yeah.
make it look better. Because
Well, when they did Far and Away, like I said, they filmed it in 65 millimeter, which is actually as close to 70 as you can get. But they don't do 70 millimeter as much anymore. But when they transfer it to a 35 millimeter print, it makes it such a crisp image that you can't even match it digitally. It's so well done because of that bigger format, and you can tell Far and Away, especially on the land rush scenes and the Ireland scenes, that 70 millimeter look really added to the story. It made it bigger than life.
And one thing with Nicole Kidman that I've recently said too is, she, I swear she's like she's like a fine wine. She just gets better with age, because she just becomes a better actress and more beautiful too. So.
And she works well with directors. That's a big plus for anybody. But she's really good at taking direction. And when you're that big of a name and you take direction, that's an oddity, because not everybody in that realm takes direction. They usually try to give it, and she wasn't one of them. She takes direction very well.
I know she has. I actually know she has a house here in Kansas, near where I live. So.
Yeah.
Which is a coincidence, and ultimately that right there really helps her with her reputation. It's because it makes it a lot easier for her to work with. And I mean, I'm not going to say any names, but there are some actors like who you don't ever see in movies all that much anymore, simply because of they're a lot more difficult to work with.
Yeah, and they're out there. I've been fortunate. I've worked with very good people. I've never really dealt with any of the what they call the typical asshole type.
Yeah.
And that's fortunate, because I like to work on films that are team builders. We work as a team. We're not individuals. And so the vast majority of creative people in this business, they're great to work with. They're down to earth. They know their stuff. They are always interested in learning new things, and they're childlike in many ways because they want to absorb everything. They're sponges. And I love working with those kind of people.
Well, and I think a lot of actors the real ones have sit there and said that it's at the end of the day we're just playing make believe for a living. That's all we're doing.
Yeah,
certainly,
and getting paid well.
And
not all get paid well, but well enough.
Yeah, I mean that's essentially what you're doing. And even Spielberg said that he dreams for a living, So it's
Yeah.
like it's one of the only few art forms that like you can actually, as long as you can visualize it, do it on in do
It's
do do
tough
it.
work, but it's rewarding in the end, regardless of whether the film does well.
Yeah.
The overall uh, the work itself is rewarding.
Oh yeah. Um, so let's see.
So yeah, but yeah, and I mean, knowing how well things are going with the tax incentives for the Montana Media Coalition, yeah, I mean, it's definitely possible like that they actually might bring Yellowstone back to Montana.
Well, they'll probably bring it back in other ways because we're going to be shooting the Madison, which is an offshoot of that. And
Right.
there's also another one called 1944 that they're planning on. It may not be Yellowstone itself,
Right.
but there'll be offshoots of it. And 1923, like this year, the second season, they brought it back and shot a bunch of stuff just up until today, actually.
Nice.
Uh, that they weren't planning because of the strike. They stayed down in Texas, but it needed Montana's touch. And so thankfully we got to work again. And all my buddies that I've worked with in the past, we were all reunited and had a blast.
There
We
you
had a lot
go.
of fun.
Nice.
Well, and I was even saying that, telling Eric that, it's amazing when you look at all the actors in the golden age of Hollywood that are really from Montana. Gary Cooper,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Myrna Loy. I mean, many people consider the queen of Hollywood. So
Yeah. Helena actually has quite a few historical Hollywood characters that come from there.
yeah, Gary.
And he's from ranch stock, so ranch stock always has the ability to adapt and prosper. So
Yeah, and I also even heard that Joe Johnson, who's the director of Jurassic Park 3 and The Wolfman,
yeah,
uh, yeah, I believe I've even heard that he's from Montana too.
yeah. Some of them were born here and then moved on, but that happens.
Well,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
But, Joe Johnson, started out working for doing the special effects for Star Wars, and then he wanted to go to college to be a director, and George Lucas paid for his college.
Nice.
So, yeah, I mean, I was just, I was just find that cool, and I mean, hey, there is a part of me that it's cool seeing Montana and everything. I would love to see maybe more stuff shot in Monument Valley, but that's just nostalgia, John Ford stuff,
Yeah.
But it's a dream of mine to go there. Did you ever film anything there in Monument Valley or no?
Well, I've never filmed in Monument Valley, but I've been there, and being a history buff and a movie buff, I loved it. It was fun.
It's on the bucket list to go there. I would love to go there. So
yeah, a lot of great imagery,
and at least film something there too, because that would be. Yeah. I mean, I'd have to sit there and take that moment here, like I'm filming where John Ford filmed.
Yeah.
And John Wayne, but I mentioned Brendan Wayne earlier. I know he does a lot of. I've heard he does a lot of westerns up there.
Yeah, he's been in a few. He likes to come and play. He's like the rest of us. We're all big kids.
Yeah,
exactly.
Well, and it's amazing. You actually see him now. I'm pretty sure in person he looks more like him. But I see pictures of him. He kind of looks like his granddaddy a little bit.
The older he gets, yeah. Scott Eastwood's another one. He looks a lot like his dad.
Definitely.
Yeah, and Bill Pullman's son, he's a doppelganger. I worked with Bill on several productions, including one we shot here in Bannock called Battle of Lefty Brown.
And, see, I always thought it'd be funny since Clint Eastwood and John Wayne never got to work together because of John Wayne's resentment. Yeah. I always thought it'd be cool if Brendan Wayne and Scott did the movie together.
Yeah, that would be interesting to see that,
Because, Scott's becoming a star. Brendan, I mean, he's the Mandalorian, so right now he's the guy in the suit. So our stuff that'd be cool. Like, Eric, make that happen.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Have Brendan Wayne and Scott Eastwood work together. Come on, this is the marketing alone. Wayne Eastwood, right?
yeah.
In a
It would be
Western.
fun for just that.
In a Western.
Yeah,
I'd
like,
love to work on that.
yeah, like, that in of itself, just sells.
Exactly.
But yeah. So, anyways, yeah, I think that about does her. But yeah, before we wrap things up, what's your advice to anybody who wants to pursue the industry of film?
Well, network.
Yep.
That is an all important thing, and never be shy. And you're going to get rejection after rejection after rejection, but don't let it bring you down, and just keep on working. But diversify. That's what I did. I not only act, I do lots of crew work, and diversifying is, especially in Montana, is key. It just is.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, every no eventually will get you closer to your yes.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but yeah, I certainly greatly do appreciate that. But yeah, I'll be sure to leave a link, like, for the Montana Media Coalition, like, for people to support it, and I'll leave a link for your Instagram, and yeah, and I really truly do appreciate it.
And if you remember,
Appreciate you guys.
And remember, we have. Remember, if you for Junebug and Beer Thaler Studios merch, we have go to Pop Pop Tees. So
Okay.
all right.
Well, thank
cool.
you.
Yeah, certainly, and thank you.
And we'll keep in touch.
Certainly.
All right, cool.